The prison smelled like rust and death. The halls were quiet, but not peaceful, just full of silence that felt wrong. Flickering lights barely lit the path as young Eli crept through the narrow corridor. He was only 16, skinny, nervous, and completely alone. He wasn't supposed to be here, not on this planet, not inside this alien prison. But he had followed a stolen signal, thinking it might lead him to captured soldiers. Instead, he found something else. Something unexpected. The cells were lined with thick blue energy fields. Inside each cage were beings from different worlds, beaten, weak, or unconscious. Some growled when he passed. Others didn't even move, but then he stopped. There she was, in the farthest cage, alone and silent. A girl not human, but close. Her skin had a soft glow, like moonlight touching water. Her silver white hair fell over one shoulder, tangled but still beautiful. She sat calmly, her knees pulled to her chest, glowing eyes staring straight at him as if she had been waiting. Eli froze. For a moment, he forgot where he was, forgot the danger, forgot everything except her eyes. "You're not supposed to be here," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was something behind it, pain, maybe even hope. Eli swallowed, looking around quickly. "No one's coming for you," he whispered. "I'm not even sure why I'm here." She tilted her head slightly. "Then maybe you were meant to be." Eli took a step closer, the energy barrier humming between them. He saw that her wrists were bruised, her ankle chained, and her back slightly burned. "What did they do to you?" he asked. She looked away. "Nothing compared to what they will do once they move me again." He looked down at the control panel by her cage. It was written in a language he didn't understand, full of symbols and glowing buttons. He tried to press something, but the field pulsed violently, throwing a spark that burned his hand. He hissed and stepped back. "I don't know how to open it," he said, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry." She slowly got up and walked to the edge of the barrier. Despite her wounds, she stood with grace like a queen in chains. "You're still young," she said, gently placing her hand against the glowing wall. "Too young." "I can help you," Eli said, desperate now. "Just tell me what to do." She shook her head. "I don't need help from a boy," she whispered. "I need a man who is ready to fight the stars for me." He blinked, confused. "But I found you." "Yes," she smiled, and it was the saddest smile he had ever seen. "And maybe one day you'll find me again, stronger, older." Behind him, a siren began to wail. Someone had triggered a silent alarm. Red lights flashed across the hallway. Voices shouted in the distance. Guards coming fast. Eli looked back at her, panic rising in his chest. "I can't leave you here," he said. "You must," she replied, "or you'll die, and then I'll be forgotten forever." Eli backed away, his feet unwilling to move. She pressed her hand harder against the barrier. "Promise me something," she said quickly, her voice firmer now. "When you are ready, really ready, come back for me, and I will be waiting." He nodded, chest tight, heart racing. "I promise," he said. Before running down the hall, he didn't look back. He couldn't, because if he did, he might have stayed and died. As the guards rushed past her cage, the alien girl leaned her head against the barrier, eyes closed. A single tear ran down her glowing cheek. He came, she thought, and maybe one day he'll come again, outside. Eli reached the surface, gasping for air. His shuttle shook as he launched back into orbit. The prison behind him vanished into the clouds, hidden on a nameless moon. But in his heart, one name remained hers. He didn't even know what she was. Didn't know why she was imprisoned, but none of that mattered. She had looked into his eyes and seen something even he hadn't seen in himself. She had asked him to return, not as a boy, but as a man who could save her. And that was the day young Eli made a promise to the stars, a vow that would burn in his soul for years, until the day he came back for her. 10 years had passed since Eli ran through the prison's dark hallways. 10 long years since the alien girl whispered, "Come back when you're ready." He had never forgotten her, not for a single day. Her voice had lived in his mind, her glowing eyes haunting his dreams. He didn't even know her name, but he had made a promise, and Ely Cross wasn't a boy anymore. Now he stood in the cockpit of his personal ship, older, taller, sharper, his face rough with scars from wars he survived. He wasn't a soldier by uniform, but by pain. The boy who once trembled in the shadows was now a man who hunted darkness itself. Still, none of that mattered if he couldn't find her. And so far, every trail had gone cold. "Computer," he said, leaning over the panel. "Bring up all recorded facilities that match Class 9 containment protocols." A soft hum replied, and a holographic map of the galaxy blinked to life. But half the data was blacked out, missing, corrupted, or deleted. That didn't surprise him. Whatever she was, whoever locked her away wanted the world to forget her. A message flashed across the screen. "Unauthorized data access detected." Then it vanished. He smiled. "Yeah, you're still hiding something." Over the years, Ely had followed whispers traders, scavengers, mercenaries, all telling stories about a forgotten prison on a dead moon. Some said it was cursed. Others said it never existed. But a dying alien general once said something different. "They don't bury monsters in graves," he had said. "They bury them in silence." And so Ely flew toward that silence. A black zone in the edge of the star maps. A blank space no one dared to name. The journey took 2 days, through asteroid fields and sensor-jamming storms. His ship's lights cut through thick cosmic dust like a needle through smoke. Finally he reached it. A planet that didn't exist on any chart, dead, cracked, and full of shadows. He landed near what looked like an old canyon, but hidden beneath. It was something artificial. He followed the markings, scanning for any structure until the sand shifted and revealed a metallic hatch. His heart began to pound. Even after all these years, he could feel her pull, like she was still waiting. He pried the door open, metal grinding, and stepped into the cold underground facility. Dust clung to everything. Silence thick like a blanket. The lights barely worked, flickering as if the place still remembered pain. He walked past shattered glass tubes, broken chains, and empty cages. Most were open, emptied long ago. But one wing was locked tight behind a rusted blast door. He broke through, and the air grew colder. Symbols lined the walls in a language he couldn't read, but one panel blinked faintly. Containment status. Critical life form stasis active. His breath caught. She's here, he thought. She has to be. He walked deeper into the hallway, and then he saw it. A long glowing pod covered in frost. Wires wrapped around it like vines. And inside, a figure lay curled gently, her silver hair still glowing faintly under the glass. His hands trembled as he reached out and touched the pod. Warmth pulsed beneath the ice. "She's alive," he whispered, voice cracking, but before he could react, red warning lights flashed across the ceiling. Stasis lock, disengaged security, awakening. Something deep in the walls began to move. Old machines roared back to life, gears grinding, doors unlocking with loud metallic clicks. He didn't have much time. Ellie slammed his fist on the panel. "Open it, damn it," the pod hissed, steam pouring out, the glass sliding aside slowly. Her body shifted, her lips parting, breath catching like someone waking from a long, endless dream. And then her eyes opened, still glowing, still soft, still the same. She looked at him, confused for a moment, and then she smiled. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Ely dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. "I told you I'd come back," he said. "This time, I'm ready." She reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched his cheek. "You're different now," she said. "Stronger," he nodded. "And you're still the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." But their moment didn't last. Metal footsteps echoed down the hall. Security droids, armed and moving fast. Ely grabbed her hand. "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. "If you guide me." "I've got you," he said, lifting her carefully. He turned to the exit, his heart burning with a mix of fear, rage, and something deeper. He had come back for her, and this time, he wasn't leaving without her. The sky above was dark even in daylight. Thick clouds rolled like smoke, hiding the sun. Eli guided the weak alien girl through the cracked and lifeless landscape. Her steps were slow, unsteady. Like her body hadn't moved in years, she leaned against him, each breath shallow but full of determination. The silence around them was deep, no birds, no wind, no life. It was like the planet itself had forgotten how to live. Or maybe it was forbidden too. The place wasn't on any star map, no record showed its name. Number Explorer claimed it. The system had no proper designation, just a black hole in the database. To most, this planet didn't exist, but here they were, walking on its ashes, and somewhere beneath their feet, someone had hidden her like a dark secret. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To my ship," Eli replied, scanning the area carefully. "It's hidden nearby, just a little more." She nodded slowly, though her eyes were distant. Each step drained her energy, as if this world itself still wanted her caged. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them. Eli stopped and pulled her close, hand gripping the old rifle on his back. A giant metallic structure rose from the earth behind them, smooth, black and silent. It looked like a tower, but had no windows, no doors, no markings. Just a cold shape rising into the sky like a tombstone. Her body stiffened in his arms. "I remember that," she whispered. "That was part of my prison." He looked at her, surprised. "There's more?" "Much more," she said, eyes filled with pain. "They didn't just hold me in one cage. They broke me piece by piece. Stored my mind, my power, and my soul in separate chambers." Eli's heart ached. He could barely imagine what she had been through. To be divided like that. To still be alive while pieces of yourself were sealed away. And yet, here she was, still standing, still breathing, still fighting. She was no ordinary alien. She was something much more. He turned back toward the canyon, pushing through the dried vines and cracked stone. His ship was hidden in the hollow. Remains of an ancient crashed freighter. He had parked it carefully. Knowing this planet wasn't safe, as they reached the edge, Solari suddenly stopped. Eli turned to her. "What's wrong?" Her eyes widened, glowing slightly. "This place is remembering me," she said. "And I'm remembering it." Before he could ask more, the ground behind them split open with a loud crack. Dark machines, twisted, old, and rusted, crawled out from beneath the soil. Their metal bodies clicked with sharp legs and scanning eyes. Defense bots from the old prison, still working, still hunting. "Get down!" Eli shouted, firing his rifle at the first one. The shot tore through its head, sparks flying. But more were coming, crawling like insects, their metal jaws snapping. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into a sprint. The path was rough, but Eli knew every step. He had planned his escape carefully. He just hadn't expected to fight while carrying someone who had once been frozen in time. As they dove into the ship's cargo bay, the door sealed behind them with a hiss. The security bots crashed into it seconds later, pounding and screeching. Eli placed her gently on a padded seat and ran to the pilot controls. His heart was racing, hands moving fast. "Hold on," he said. "We're getting out of here." The engines roared to life, shaking the old frame of the freighter. The bots outside tried climbing the hull, but Eli's defense systems lit up, zapping, slicing, and burning them off. The ship lifted, rising through the stormy clouds as lightning flashed across the sky. They burst through the upper atmosphere, escaping the dead planet's grip. Only then did Eli breathe again. He turned to her. "We're safe." She looked at him, face pale, but peaceful. "I didn't think anyone would come back," she whispered. Eli knelt beside her. "I made you a promise." She smiled faintly. "Do you know my name now?" He shook his head. "No." She placed her hand over his. "Solari," she said softly. "My name is Solari." He repeated it, like a sacred word. "Solari." She leaned her head against the seat, tired. "Why did you come back?" she asked, her eyes searching his. Eli looked at her, older now, stronger, scarred, but still carrying that boy's promise inside. "Because you believed in me," he said. when no one else ever did. And because you waited, outside the ship, the cursed planet shrank into the distance, below it. The rest of her prison still slept beneath the surface. But now, a piece of her was free. And Eli knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of something bigger. Something they would face together. Asterisk, the hum of the starship echoed softly in the quiet cabin. Eli sat beside her as Solari lay on a padded bench. Covered in a soft thermal blanket, her skin still glowed faintly, but her body trembled as if her soul had returned to flesh after centuries of floating. Outside the windows, stars passed in long golden trails as they entered warp speed, but inside the ship, time moved slowly, breath by breath, memory by memory. Eli had seen injuries before. He had seen pain, war, slavery, abandonment, but nothing compared to this. This was something ancient, deep, like her suffering was carved into her bones, and yet she was not broken. She had survived. Solari's eyes fluttered open, glowing. Dim but steady, she turned her head slowly, meeting his gaze. "You remembered," she whispered, her voice dry. "You came back." "I said I would," Eli replied, offering her a warm drink. "Took me longer than I wanted." She took the cup, sipping slowly, the warmth bringing some color back to her cheeks. "No one ever comes back," she said softly. "That's what they teach us in the cages." He frowned. "They?" She looked away. "The ones who built that place. They don't just imprison bodies, Eli. They break belief." Eli leaned forward. "You know my name." She smiled faintly. "I remembered it. After you left. I said it every night before sleep. I didn't want to forget your voice." Eli felt something tighten in his chest. How could she still remember him after so many years? How could she carry his name like a lifeline through cold and silence? "You knew I'd return," he said gently. Solari nodded. "The way you looked at me. Not with fear, not with disgust. That look meant something." She sat up slowly, her body weak but her posture still regal. The blanket fell from her shoulders, revealing deep scars that glowed faintly beneath her skin. They pulsed like faded circuitry, evidence of something unnatural. "What are these?" Eli asked quietly. "Seals," she answered. "They locked away my powers, my memories." Eli hesitated, then asked, "What are you, Solari?" She didn't reply right away. She looked out the window, eyes focused on the stars beyond. "When my kind was young," she began, "we didn't rule through war, but through harmony. We guided planets, kept balance, healed dying suns. But we became too powerful, too different. So the galactic empires turned on us, called us threats to the natural order. They feared you," Eli said. "They feared what I could become," she replied. "So they caged me before I could choose for myself." She touched the scars on her arm, her fingers tracing each glowing line. "They separated my mind, body, and energy. That's why I was so weak when you found me. I'm still missing pieces." Eli leaned back, trying to process it all. She wasn't just another alien girl locked in a cage. She was something far more powerful, something lost and hunted. "Why now?" he asked. "Why did they leave you there for so long?" "Because I stopped mattering," she said. "Once the war ended, they erased all trace of us. I became a ghost in a prison that doesn't exist. But now," she continued, "I feel something waking up again. When you touched my pod, when you spoke my name, a part of me returned." A soft alarm beeped on the ship's console, proximity alert. Eli stood and checked the screen. 2 ships on their tail, small, fast, military class. He cursed under his breath. "They found us." Solari didn't flinch. She stood shakily and walked toward him. "Let me help," she said. "You said your powers were sealed." She nodded. "But not all of them." "Not anymore." She stepped into the center of the ship, her body trembling with effort. Then she closed her eyes, placed both palms against the floor. A soft glow spread from her hands, gentle at first, then brighter. The hum of the ship changed. Like it was alive. Eli watched as the ship's speed increased beyond safe limits. Stars stretched even farther until the chasing ships were gone from radar. She collapsed, Eli catching her just in time. "You saved us," he whispered. Solari smiled weakly. "You saved me first. That makes us even." He carried her back to the bench, covering her again. As she rested, Eli sat beside her and looked out at the stars. He had no idea what came next, what enemies would chase them, or what her powers might awaken. But one thing was certain, she was no longer forgotten. She was alive, she was remembering, and she was his responsibility now. And in the quiet hum of the ship, her voice came once more. "When I'm whole again," she whispered, eyes still closed, "I'll show you who I really am." The ship floated silently in deep space, hidden between two giant asteroid fields. No signals were sent out, no lights flashed, and every communication system was set to stealth mode. Eli didn't want to be found, not again, not until he knew exactly what Solari was, and what he had just brought back into the galaxy. She was resting now, her glowing skin dimmed, her breathing slow, but her presence filled the ship, even when she slept. Alec could feel something in the air, like the universe itself bent gently around her. He had seen powerful creatures, strange aliens, machines that could destroy cities, but Solari was different. She wasn't just powerful, she was sacred. Eli sat at the control panel, watching her through the glass divider. He hadn't slept since they escaped. He was too busy trying to understand what had just happened. How had she increased the ship's speed without touching the engine? How had she felt those hunters coming before the radar even picked them up? And most of all, what else was she hiding? Suddenly, Solari stirred, her eyes opened slowly, and her glow returned, brighter than before. She sat up without help this time. Stronger, steadier. Eli entered the room, carrying warm food and water. She smiled as he approached. "You stayed up all night," he nodded. "Couldn't sleep." She looked around the room, the metal walls, the hum of the ship. "So peaceful now," she said. "It's strange to be free after so long." Eli sat across from her, placing the food between them. "Tell me the truth," he said gently. "What are you really?" Solari looked into his eyes for a long moment. Then she reached into her memory, not with words, but with images. A faint glow left her fingers and hovered in the air between them. It formed a vision, a planet covered in golden light, floating islands and cities in the clouds. "There were once beings called the Velari," she said. "Not gods, not monsters, just guardians. We didn't take control of others. We kept the balance. We healed, protected, and kept chaos from spreading." Eli watched as the glowing vision changed. The peaceful world was attacked, ships falling from the sky, soldiers with burning weapons. "Our power frightened the rising empires," she continued. "So they turned on us. They called us unstable, dangerous, too free. One by one, my kind was hunted down." The image zoomed in. Solari herself, younger, brighter, standing in the middle of a burning temple. "Some of us fought back," she whispered, "but I surrendered. I thought if I let them lock me away, the war would stop. But instead, they buried me." The vision faded, and the room was quiet again. Eli leaned forward, trying to absorb it all. "You were a guardian of peace," he said. "I tried to be," she answered. "But they feared that I could become something else. They were afraid I would become a god." Eli shook his head. "You're not a god," she smiled sadly. "No," she said, "but I am. Not just a girl either. Whatever I am, I'm not done becoming it." She stood slowly, walked to the center of the room, and lifted her hand. The lights dimmed slightly, and a small orb of energy formed in her palm, soft, warm, and pulsing. It floated above her hand like a heartbeat. "This is a piece of my core," she said, "one of 3. The others are still hidden in the prison, in forgotten places. So you're not whole yet." Eli said, standing beside her. She nodded. "Not even close. But I feel it now. Some of me is waking up." He stepped closer, watching the orb of light carefully. It wasn't burning, but he could feel its weight like holding a star in the palm of a hand. Solari looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "If you stay with me, Eli, things will get harder. They will come for us again stronger. Faster, more afraid than before." He didn't flinch. "I didn't cross galaxies to leave now," he said. "We finish what they tried to erase. I'll help you find the other pieces." She blinked slowly, emotion swelling in her glowing eyes. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. "You don't even know who I'll become." Eli smiled. "I don't need to know. I know who you are now, and that's enough for me." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she lowered the orb, letting it fade. She stepped closer to him, her fingers lightly touching his chest. "Then let me show you something." The room changed, not physically, but in feeling like the air had shifted. She showed him another vision, this time of a future, a galaxy burning, fleets crashing, and one figure standing in the middle of it all. It was her, floating, powerful, terrifying, with stars in her eyes, but beside her stood a man in armor, holding her hand. And she was calm, not a destroyer, but a guide. "You could become this?" Ailey asked, voice shaken. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I hope, with you beside me." "I won't." Eli looked at her, no longer just curious but connected. They weren't just two souls lost in space. They were now bound by something ancient, powerful, and dangerous. And he had made a promise, not just to return, but to stay. The stars outside were silent, but inside the ship, the tension was heavy. Solari sat cross-legged on the floor, meditating, trying to feel the distant pieces of her broken self. Her glow had grown stronger over the past few days, but something else had changed too. She had become quiet, watchful, like she knew something bad was coming. Eli felt it too, like a storm was circling around them in space. Even if they couldn't see it yet, he paced the control room, checking the radar every few minutes. The ship's sensors were clean, no sign of pursuit, no strange signals. Eli trusted his instincts, and Solari's silence told him more than any scanner could. Suddenly, she stood up, her expression serious. "They've found us," she said quietly. Eli rushed to the window. "Who?" "The ones who sealed me," she whispered. "They're afraid I've awakened." Within seconds, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the control board. Multiple ships had exited warp speed nearby. 5 vessels, sleek, silver, built for speed and war, not pirates, not bounty hunters. These were the old ones, the same kind who created the prison she escaped from. The ones who built a cage for a goddess. They didn't waste time, Eli muttered, powering the weapons, but... Solari placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," she said. "You'll die if you fight them alone." Eli turned to her. "Then what do we do?" "We run, but not far," she said. "There's a place, a memory, calling me." She gave him coordinates deep in the ruins of a system destroyed long ago. He didn't question her. He turned the ship and pushed the engine past its safety limit. The hull groaned, metal shaking, lights flickering. But the ship leapt forward, breaking through space just as the enemy fired. Beams of golden light barely missed them, slicing through the stars. But they escaped, just barely. The next destination was a graveyard of planets. Old war machines floated in space, rusted and quiet. Dead ships drifted in silence, bones of a war no one spoke of. And in the center of it all was a black monolith, half buried in asteroid dust. Solari's hand trembled as they approached it. "That's where I lost the second part of me," she said. Eli brought the ship in close, landing on a cracked surface. The air was thin but breathable. As they stepped outside, Solari's glow lit the darkness. The ruins responded to her, walls shifted, ancient lights flickered on, even. The broken stones hummed at her presence. "This place was once sacred," she said, "but they turned it into a tomb." She led Eli through a shattered corridor into a wide chamber. At the center, floating above the ground, was a crystal. Inside it, a glowing heart pulsed with soft violet light. "It's mine," she whispered, stepping forward. But just as her fingers reached it, everything changed. A deafening sound filled the chamber, and golden beams of light shot from the ceiling. A ship had followed them, cloaked until now. Soldiers in white armor descended from the skies, weapons drawn. Solari stumbled backward, her energy spiking. Aelip pulled out his blaster and stood in front of her. The leader stepped forward, helmet hiding his face. "You should not have awakened her," he said to Eli. "She is the end of balance." "No," Eli replied, raising his weapon. "She's the beginning of it." A battle exploded in seconds. Blasts lit the dark chamber. Stone shattered. Echoes of screams filled the air. Eli fought with all his strength, covering Solari as she moved toward the crystal. Her fingers finally touched it, and everything stopped. A wave of violet light exploded from her chest. Time seemed to pause, soldiers frozen in place. Weapons suspended mid-air. She stood tall, now eyes burning like stars, hair flowing like living light. The second part of her had returned, and she was no longer helpless. With one gesture, she sent the soldiers flying back through the chamber. Ayla could hardly breathe. He had never seen such power, but her eyes still searched for him. Still softened when they met his, she walked to him and placed her glowing hand on his shoulder. "I said it would get harder," she said, "but I won't let them take you," he smiled, even as blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. "I'm not leaving," he said. "Even if you become a star, I'll still walk beside you." Behind them, the enemy ships began retreating. They had seen enough. They knew she was no longer just a lost prisoner. She was something more now, something rising. As the chamber returned to silence, Eli and Solari stood together, wounded but unbroken. The universe had tried to tear them apart, but instead it had made their bond stronger. And far away, in the darkness between stars, others began to stir, watching, fearing, preparing for what would come next. The stars above the hidden world blinked softly like old memories. This planet had no name, no light on any map, but it had warmth, clean air, blue grass, and silence. The kind of silence that felt safe. Eli stood at the edge of a quiet stream, wiping blood from his face. His wounds had begun to heal, but his mind still raced with what they had just survived. He looked up as Solari walked toward him barefoot, her silver hair glowing under the twin moons. Her energy had changed. It was no longer wild or lost, it was balanced. She no longer looked like a prisoner or a weapon. She looked whole. "This place is beautiful," he said, handing her a cup of water. She took it and nodded. "It's one of the few places left untouched by war. The galaxy forgot it, so it survived." Eli sat on a nearby rock, watching the moonlight dance on her skin. "You're different now," he said. "I can feel it. I'm still me," she said softly, sitting beside him. "But more of me has awakened. I remember who I was and who I could be." He looked at her carefully. "And what do you want to be?" Solari was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Free. Not feared, not worshipped, just free. To walk, to breathe, to laugh, maybe even to love." Eli's breath caught for a moment. He looked down, heart pounding. "And what about us?" he asked, voice low. She turned to him, eyes glowing gently. "You came back," she whispered. "You saw what I am, and you didn't run. You chose me again." He reached for her hand and held it carefully, like touching light. "I made a promise when I was a scared little boy," he said. "But now, I make a choice as a man. I choose you, not because you glow or because you saved the ship. I choose you because you waited, and I never stopped hoping I'd see you again." Her lips curved into a small smile. "And I never stopped believing you'd return." The two sat together under the stars, quiet but connected. In the distance, strange flowers opened only at night, glowing faintly, reacting to her presence. Even the trees seemed to lean toward her, as if remembering her people from long ago. This world accepted her, and Eli could see it clearly. So did he. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked. "The ones who want to cage you again?" "Yes," she replied. "They're afraid I'll rise. But they don't understand. I don't want to rule. I just want to live. And now, I'm not alone anymore. Eli stood and offered his hand. Then let's build something here, he said. Not a throne, not a weapon, just a home. She took his hand and rose. You'd really stay here? Hide from the galaxy? He chuckled. It's not hiding if we're growing something real. And maybe, one day, the galaxy will be ready to meet you again. Solari closed her eyes, feeling the wind, the soil beneath her feet, and the stars above. She placed her other hand over her heart. I feel the third piece of me, she said. Still out there, far away calling. Eli didn't flinch. When you're ready, we'll find it, he said. Together. She looked at him with deep gratitude, not for rescuing her, but for seeing her, not as a weapon or a symbol, but a person, someone worth waiting for, someone worth fighting beside. As they returned to the small ship resting in the tall grass, Eli looked back at the sky. The same stars that once watched a scared teen run from a prison now shined over a man who had returned. Not for glory, not for war, but for a promise. A single moment when a girl behind a cage whispered, "Come back when you're stronger." And he did. Now on the edge of the galaxy, a new story was beginning, not about war, but healing. Not about power, but love, and in the quiet, under twin moons, Solari whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "I don't want to be a goddess. Ele, I just want to be yours." He smiled and pulled her close. "Then you already are." And the stars blinked again, as if blessing the bond between the boy who returned and the girl who waited in silence and never stopped believing in him.